Welcome everyone, my name is Rigel and today we're gonna take a look at my personal qualifier predictions for Eurovision 2023. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, I think you already know that I already have a set of predictions up there. And truth be told, this isn't actually all that different from those predictions, but I made those even before the running order was out. And of course, that was obviously before pre-parties and stuff, and now that the pre-parties are over, I thought, based on the live vocals and such, I think I would do a set of slightly updated qualification predictions, plus, my reasoning for it. So here we are. I'm gonna go by running order, and I'm gonna start with the first semi-final, where we start with Norway, and that is, of course, Queen of Kings by Alessandra. Now, for me personally, this is pretty straightforward. It's definitely going to qualify, although maybe not as comfortably as some might think. A lot of people seem to have this idea that because it's doing good on streaming platforms, that means people are gonna all like it. When in reality, we've seen with, Snap and with Eat Your Salad that virality doesn't necessarily correlate to actual Eurovision results, but because the way I look at it is, I think this is a solid proposal, and less so that it's viral, that I think is going to qualify. So, I think that on the whole, the package looks clean, looks neat. Alessandra's vocals are surprisingly dodgy. She's very easily out of breath. To be fair, this is a very vocally demanding song, but still, she's very easily out of breath. The whistle note is also very dodgy. I think it was either Amsterdam or London that the E6 became a G flat 6, and when I heard that, I just burst out laughing. I'm sorry. But still, on the whole, the package is good. The performance in MGP was solid, although I have read that they are trying to get dancers who can also sing, so they can have live backing vocals instead of just backing vocals on the track. So yeah, there's that. But overall, other than maybe adding some more color, I think the proposal, the staging and everything is very solid. So I don't think this has any issue getting to the final, although getting to the final itself, after that might be a whole different story, but maybe that's just me. Anyways, in either case, I think Norway is a comfortable qualifier. So with that said, let's move on to the dev slot, which is second place in the semi, and don't come at me for this. The dev slot is actually second place if we just take televote into account. Overall, considering also the jury, then yes, it would be third place, which is the dev slot. But if we just take a look at the televote, the last time a country qualified from second in the running order was Michalsbach, Poland 2016, and that was probably because of the diaspora. And speaking of diaspora and a country in second in the running order, we'll get back to that. But for the first semifinal, Malta, and that is of course being represented by the busker with the song Dance Our Own Party. Like I said previously, on Twitter and stuff, I really like this. Actually, it's fun, it's carefree, and most importantly of all, it's homegrown. Other than Azerbaijan, Malta also has this reputation of buying songs from Sweden or Denmark or whatever. And for once, we actually have something that was written by people from Malta and performed by people from Malta. And it's a very authentic piece in that regard. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a great saxophone, obviously. And I think it will stand out in that respect. However, as much as I want this to qualify, I'm not seeing it because this is, again, like a lot of people have said, this is the semi-final of death. There's a lot of really, really impactful songs in the semi-final, and frankly, by the end, I'm not sure how many people are going to vote for the quirky saxophone song. Don't get me wrong, I'd love for them to qualify, but I'm just personally not seeing it, unfortunately. So yeah, hopefully after this they do still try to look for local talent in Malta, rather than going back to buying songs from Sweden. Don't get me wrong, I actually quite liked Jimacast, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's just not very authentic to Malta, is it? So yeah, unfortunately, Malta to miss out for the grand final for another year. So with that said, let's move on to what people like to call the death slot of semifinals, third place. Now this is interesting because this isn't the first time in recent years that Serbia has gotten third place in the running order, semi-final running order. In fact, it happened just last year when Constracta was placed third in the running order of the second semi-final. And a lot of people expected that maybe this year, after essentially screwing them over last year, maybe Luke Black would get something better, but I guess not. So yeah, anyways, yeah, like I mentioned just now, that's Luke Black representing Serbia with the song Samo mi se spava, which in Serbian means I just want to sleep, which is a very kind of avant-garde type, dark, electronic kind of song. Yeah, it's very much kind of in the vein of Hatari Munsigra from Hatari. Of course, it's kind of more toned down. There's obviously not a lot of like BDSM motifs, but yeah, it's still a very interesting track. I personally actually like this more than Constracta because the sound just sounds more right to me, if that makes sense. Anyways, on to qualification. I think this will qualify. Although some people are discussing that this could be a shock NQ, I wouldn't agree with that myself. Although I do think it is closer to the bottom than to the top. I would say this qualifies around sixth to 8th, probably, or maybe even 9th, but probably 6th to 8th personally. And the reason for that is because we always talk about like Poland or Lithuania having diaspora. Well, you need to know there's also a lot of Serbs who don't live in ex-Yugoslav countries. So there's a lot of Serbs living in Western countries. I mean, hell, Luke Black himself lives in London, and also I think on Twitter there's a Serbian Euro fan who's actually living in Switzerland. So yeah, Serbs are actually kind of everywhere, and I think they probably wouldn't hesitate to vote for this. And even then, I think this stands out from the field enough for voters from other countries to also give this enough points to qualify. So I think it will qualify. Although I don't see this doing very well in the final. But of course, we'll have to see what happens. I personally love the song, actually. So yeah, I think Serbia will qualify probably around 6th to 8th. So yeah, with that said, let's move on to my first hot take of this qualification prediction, and that is Latvia. Now, with Latvia, of course, we have Southern Lights representing Latvia with the song Aya. And my hot take is that they are going to qualify. Why? Because on Twitter, it's garnered quite a fan base, actually. and including myself, I'm actually in a group chat called Sudden Lighters. And yeah, of course, Twitter isn't everything, but if you look at the Eurovision scoreboard app, which, yes, I know isn't very representative of general public, but it's the largest sample size that we have, so I would go with it personally. On there, I think it's around overall 18th or 19th. I'll just check right now. Eurovision All Songs. Latvia is 17th out of 37. So obviously that's overall speaking, that is the qualifier for the thousands of people who use the app, and I think that's very significant. Meanwhile, in the Eurovision odds, they aren't looked at so fondly, which makes sense. It's actually mostly just British people who are betting, and I think a lot of them might be turned off by this kind of weird music. That said, Tom Scott, Matt Gray, and Tim, they actually placed Latvia third, which thank you very much, but why the hell did you put Ireland and Denmark above that? Anyways, sorry, I'm getting off topic, but yeah, I think one thing is similar with Serbia is that this stands out from the field enough, because it's kind of its own thing. It's got a very dynamic structure. The song grabs your attention from the start with that weird, I guess, drum machine type thing. Electronic drum machine, I don't know. But yeah, I think this is going to barely scrape through at 10th place. Maybe even only a couple points in front of 11th place. But I think it's going to qualify, and personally speaking, as a rest of the world voter, I will be voting for this. I will be giving 20 votes for this. So let's see what happens, but I really think they deserve to qualify, because as a lot of people have said, this is probably their best entry in years. So yeah, I think it's going to qualify. This might be a hot take, but we'll see what happens in May. In the meantime, let's move on to the next country, which is Portugal. They're being represented by Mimi Cat with the song Ai Coração. And I also think this is going to qualify. This might be another hot take, considering the Eurovision odds are actually putting this 11th in the semifinal. I think 11th, or maybe just barely 10th, but yeah, the odds aren't looking at this too fondly, but I think it will qualify because of expectancy. There's this thing where usually entries that sound like something that a Eurovision audience would expect from the country, that kind of sound tends to get more votes. Case in point, Voila from France, Barbara Pravi 2021. Yeah, that kind of song usually tends to do better because for some reason, I guess people just expect that kind of sound from that country. And I think this is a great example of that because, flamenco might traditionally be associated more with Spain. However, it's an Iberian thing. So, of course, Portugal can do it as well. So I think that actually Portugal stands a pretty good chance of qualifying. Not to mention, of course, that Mimi Cat has really good vocals. At all the pre-parties, she's literally never missed a single note. So yeah, she sounds great. The show, I think, maybe lacks a little bit of energy, despite the dancers, but I think it will be improved in May. As Portuguese stagings tend to be. Personally, I still prefer Saudade Saudade. That was just magical, but this is also a very solid entry, and I think it's going to qualify, although I'm doubtful of his chances in the grand final, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. For the meantime, let's talk about the next country, which is Ireland. With Ireland, we have the band named Wild Youth, who are representing Ireland with the song We Are One. And I think this is pretty clear. Unfortunately, I don't see a way for this to qualify. It's great that the lead singer is like clapping back at haters and stuff on Twitter, but the song just isn't strong enough. There's this kind of, I think, ironically, in a way, Wild Youth really represent the current attitude in Ireland towards Eurovision. For one, they call it the Eurovision. Secondly, they have this preconceived notion in their head that a Eurovision song has to sound like this, has to sound like that. When in reality, in the past few years, we've seen clearly that songs going to Eurovision can be very diverse, very different, and still do well. And unfortunately, this is just their kind of idea of what a quote-unquote Eurovision song sounds like. And yeah, just no one subscribes to that ideology anymore other than British and Irish. So yeah, I'm just not seeing the votes for this. I will say I saw somewhere that if they were to describe their performance with one word, it would be cat suits. So make of that what you will. I would be greatly concerned if they performed in cat suits, but you do you. So yeah, I don't think Ireland is qualifying. I think Brooke was a much more solid, much more well-rounded proposal, and if that didn't qualify, what hope is there for this? So yeah, that's Ireland. We'll see what happens when Sweden wins and ties the Irish record of 7 wins. In the meantime, let's move on to Croatia. Now, Croatia are being represented by the group Let Free with the song Mama Sh. I put this as my first borderline. You can see in the graphic here, I have green, I have red, and then I have this kind of orange, yellow-y color. I use that for borderline countries, and in this case, the borderline country is Croatia. Now, the song is very polarizing. I personally really dislike it. If you've seen the Southern Lighters jury, that was posted a few days ago by Twitter user Stella Vic, or to more charts and updates. That was posted a few days ago, and you can tell there that I was literally the only person to put Croatia last place. Yeah, it's a very polarizing song. You either love it or hate it, honestly. And I appreciate their message and all that. I just cannot click with the song, and I think that's going to be the same case for a lot of people. There's some people thinking this could be a solid qualifier because it stands out and because it's so different. But I think this is a polarizing kind of difference. Well, I've said polarizing enough times already, but I think this is more going to turn people off than turn people on. So yeah, I think people are going to look at this and say, what the hell is this? And not vote for it. So yes, I have heard that apparently in the Balkans, Let Free are very famous. So I think we could be expecting points for Croatia from Slovenia and probably Serbia, but even some Serbs have noted that Let Free don't really have a great representation in Serbia, apparently. So it might not be a 12, and another bad thing about all these countries withdrawing this year is that there aren't a lot of Balkan countries because technically all three countries that withdrew are Balkan countries. Montenegro, Bulgaria, North Macedonia. So there's just not a lot of quote unquote Balkan solidarity coming Croatia's way. So yeah, this sounds kind of hypocritical, but given what I said about Serbia, but still, I'm not seeing this as a solid qualifier. I wouldn't rule it out at this point. I think this could come 9th or 10th, but that's the extent. I don't think this is going to do particularly well, even if it does get in the final. So yeah, with that said, that's Croatia. I'm putting them as a borderline qualifier, so they might qualify or they might not. So with that said, let's move on to our next country, which is Switzerland. With Switzerland, we have Remo Ferrer representing the country with the song Water Gun. And this might be a hot take to some people, particularly the bookmakers, but I don't think this has any chance of qualifying. First off, it's a ballad going this early. I might sound hypocritical about this later when I talk about another ballad, but it's a ballad going 8th, especially in the semi-final of Death. It's touching on a topic in a really weird way. And also, I don't know how much this really matters, but I think there's definitely a kind of disconnect between Remo Ferrer's face and voice. So yeah, I don't know if there are people who are gonna be voting for this, especially in a televote only semifinal. Surely, absolutely this isn't as boring as Boys Do Cry. But I still don't think it's engaging enough for people to really pick up their phone and vote for Water Gun. So yeah, I don't think this is going to qualify. I'm not sure why the bookmakers think it will. Okay, he sings great, but that doesn't matter in a televote semifinal, does it? So yeah, I don't think Switzerland is going to qualify, so that's a 2 non-qualification streak. And with that said, let's move on to the next country, which is Israel. With Israel, of course, they are being represented by Noah Kirel with the song Unicorn, and I'm putting them through as a solid qualifier. As much as I dislike the song, the budget this year is 900,000 euros. That is huge. I don't know how much of that they actually spent on production, but hey, they're gonna practically just throw the entire kitchen sink at the staging. Plus, Noah Kirel is an experienced performer. She knows how to act on stage, and of course, there's gonna be a dance break, so this is going to be very memorable. And as much as I don't like the song, I don't really see a way where this doesn't qualify. Unless it's kind of like a secret kind of scenario, but personally I'm not seeing it. I think this is going to qualify very comfortably. Maybe not top 3 again, maybe 4th or 5th, but this is going to qualify very easily for the final, although we'll have to see what happens in the final. So yeah, a solid qualifier, unfortunately for me. And after that, we have Moldova. With Moldova, we have Pasha Parfeni representing Moldova with the song Soarele și Luna, which in Romanian means the sun and the moon. And I think this is going to qualify very easily as well. Because it just, for the lack of a better term, it just goes hard. It's got a very pumping beat in the background, kind of electronic bass type beats in the background. The show is going to be lively. We obviously have that small flute guy and also the timpani players. Yes, and obviously, Pasha Parfeni's done Eurovision before. We know he can sing. We know he can perform. So yeah, I honestly wouldn't be too concerned with the qualification. I've seen some people put Moldova actually as a borderline qualifier, but I think this going in pretty solid. Again, maybe like 4th, 5th, or 6th. Plus, Moldova usually does well in the televote anyway, and I don't think there's going to be an exception. And again, like I said, with Portugal, there's the expectancy factor. This is kind of something that you'd expect from Moldova because, it's a Slavic-influenced country. You expect these kind of pagan motifs to come through in their music. So yeah, I think all things considered, the staging is going to be good, the live vocal is going to be good, and no doubt Moldova are going to stage this very well to make this engaging. So yeah, I would put Moldova through as a pretty solid qualifier, even though they might be sandwiched between two very strong entries. So yeah, I think Moldova is qualifying. And speaking of Moldova, let's talk about another country whose participant was in 2012, and that is Sweden. With Sweden, of course, we have the Loreen with Tattoo, and I don't think I really even need to talk about this. Of course, they're going to qualify. I mean, it's a favorite to win. Why would it not qualify? The staging might be a bit of a concern, but certainly not enough to make this a non-qualifier. So yeah, that's Sweden. I don't have much else to say. Let's move on to Azerbaijan. With Azerbaijan, they're being represented by the twin group Turan X, who are singing the song Tell Me More, which is a kind of sweet 90s Britpop type song, which is very unusual for a country like Azerbaijan. But yeah, they're being represented by Turan X, and I think everyone saw this coming, but there is absolutely no way in hell they were going to qualify. One even wonders whether they intentionally chose this so they could have an excuse to going back to buying songs from Sweden. I don't know that for sure, but that's just speculation on my part. Yeah, it's a sweet song. I actually really like it. Certainly a lot more than Fade to Black. But yeah, this is not coming out alive in the semifinal like this, especially when it's sandwiched between these two countries. So yeah, I don't have much else to say about this either. After a surefire qualifier comes a surefire non-qualifier. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think Azerbaijan is going to be in the final. Or fortunately, depending on who you ask. So yeah, with that said, let's move on to Czechia, who is being represented by the group Vesna with the song My Sister's Crown. Now, I understand there's been quite a bit of controversy about their live performances, in the sense that they don't harmonize very well. But certainly in more recent pre-parties, like, Amsterdam, for example, they've sounded a lot better. They've known much better how to look at how to deal with an audience, how to look at the camera, for example. So I think it's a lot more solid. Plus, remember We Are Dami? Everyone was doubting Dominica's vocals, actually, and then she absolutely nailed it in semifinal 2 and came 4th in the semifinal. So yeah, I don't think I would worry that much at this point. And people point out that Czechia has had dodgy staging, but another thing to note is that their staging director this year is the same one from last year, which is to say, instead of getting someone like Sacha John Baptiste or Marvin Dietman, they're actually having their own staging director from Czechia. So, and we saw the light show from Lights Off, and so yeah, I think we're going to be getting a pretty great show indeed. So honestly, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Again, I don't know if this is going to qualify very high. I could see this barely nailing fourth or fifth. But nonetheless, I would not be too worried about their qualification at this point. So yeah, with that said, let's move on to the Netherlands, and here we have my second borderline qualifier. Now, of course, the Netherlands are being represented by Mia Nicolai and Dion Cooper with the song Burning Daylight, and as of recording this, there's been a lot of drama surrounding Mia Nicolai and Dion Cooper because apparently, they sounded bad. I say apparently because I don't actually hear it. If I go back and watch all the clips, to me at least they sound completely fine, and I don't really even like the song that much, so I'm not sure what people are going on about. But I think they sounded fine, but apparently other people don't think they sounded that well. Even the Dutch broadcaster itself thought they didn't sound that good. So I think there's definitely some sort of mental factor going on here. But no doubt the Dutch are good at staging their entries, and I think that going this late, if they can stage it appropriately enough, I think it wouldn't be too much of an issue for the Netherlands to qualify for the final. So yeah, at this point in time, I'm putting them borderline, so I think they will be anywhere between 8th and 12th. So yeah, there's not much else to say. I think they could qualify. The song is alright. Their harmonies are questionable. Like in terms of vocal quality, I think the notes are actually fine. So yeah, I don't think it's like dead in the water, but I also don't think it's a solid qualifier. So yeah, that's a borderline qualifier for the Netherlands for me. And to close the semifinal, we have Finland, who is of course being represented by Garia with the song Cha Cha Cha, and it's a similar case with Sweden. It's a contender to win, so why would we need to worry about its qualification? So yeah, I think the top two of semifinal one is going to be solidly Finland and Sweden. And it might even be that top two in the grand final as well, so I wouldn't worry about it. The show is very lively. Gadia has great stage presence. He knows how to deal with the camera, and dancers also provide an interesting element to the performance as well, so I wouldn't worry about it. So yeah, I'm not gonna put out like a tentative ranking for the first semifinal, but for now, my personal qualifiers, the solid ones anyway, are Norway, Serbia, Latvia, Portugal, Israel, Moldova, Sweden, Czechia, and Finland. And then finally, either the Netherlands or Croatia is going to be one of the qualifiers as well. So that is the first semifinal. So now we move on to the second semifinal. With the second semifinal, qualification is a lot more open, because a lot of their songs are all just kind of the same level of quality, but I think I've narrowed it down to about, I think, 11. So yeah, I've got 11 potential qualifiers here. 3 of them are borderline, and then the rest I think are pretty solid. So let's start the show with Denmark, who are being represented by Riley with the song Breaking My Heart. This is potentially a hot take, but I don't think he has any chance of qualifying, because here's the thing. A lot of people point to his TikTok following as possibly getting a lot of televotes. But first off, a lot of those fans are in South Korea, where people really don't care for Eurovision. And even if they do, that's rest of the world. So that's like at most not even 12 probably, because of another country I'm going to talk about. So yeah, a lot of his fans are in South Korea. And secondly, I hate to break it to you, but a lot of his fans are bot accounts. So yeah, he absolutely bought a lot of bot accounts. So yeah, his following is not nearly as big as the numbers seem to suggest. And if you look at the comments, every one of them is like kind of roasting him, like this is so hard, fire emoji to listen to, stuff like that. So yeah, I am really and even in the Danish national final, he didn't even win the televote there. So even clearly in Denmark, he doesn't have that, domestic popularity. So what hope is there for him to, reach out abroad, right? So and also the vocals, I think it's just a little dodgy. Certainly a lot of his more recent like pre-party performances have sounded better than that one after party performance, if you know what I'm talking about. But still, he doesn't sound very great. And there are a lot more powerful vocalists in this semifinal, so I'm just not feeling it. However, I am feeling Armenia, who are in the second slot. Now, Armenia is being represented by Brunette with the song Future Lover, and it feels weird, of course, to put through a song in second place. But here's the thing. The diaspora absolutely love this. Everywhere I go on Eurovision YouTube, it's like Armenians or Armenian diaspora being like, oh my god, Brunette is so good, and stuff like that. And a lot of times Armenia kind of just wins polls by default because so many Armenians and Armenian diaspora are voting for themselves. In fact, right before I started recording this, I saw a post from Wee Blogs that says that Armenia's Brunette is our reader's favorite female solo act of Eurovision 2023. So yeah, Armenians love this. Don't get me wrong, I really like it as well. However, it's clear that the Armenian diaspora are really going to mobilize to vote for this. So it's going to be another similar situation to Michal Sprach from 2016, where the diaspora just greatly mobilizes to vote for their own country. And remember, it's not just rest of the world. There's also obviously there's Armenians in Georgia. In fact, Eru is one of them, and in fact some Georgian Euro fans are pretty certain that Georgia will give 12 to Armenia. There's also a lot of Armenians in the UK, in France especially, although I'm not sure whether France can vote in the semifinal. They can, yes, they can. I think France are voting in this semifinal. So yeah, either way, there are a lot of Armenian diaspora everywhere who are very much willing to mobilize for to vote for themselves, basically. So I would put this through as one of the most solid qualifiers, actually, which again feels weird being in the second slot, but here we are. So with that said, let's move on to another country with a big diaspora, and that is Romania. Now, Romania are being represented by Theodore Andre with the song DGT Off and On, and despite their diaspora, I don't think this is going through. Don't get me wrong, I really like the song. I'm possibly one of the first people to jump to defend the song when it gets hate on Twitter and such, but I'm just not seeing it. It just doesn't have that mass appeal, I think, that a song really needs to qualify. It is near last place in every single ranking, in the odds, in the Eurovision scoreboard app, and in the personal rankings of a lot of Eurofans that I've seen. So yeah, I'm not particularly hopeful for this. And then they had to release a revamp where basically half the song was replaced with acoustic guitar. Yeah, so that's kind of weird. I don't think it's necessarily harmful to the qualification chances, however much they already had. But yeah, it certainly doesn't help being a song in third, which is the combined dev slot, not just televote dev slot. So yeah, I'm not seeing this going through, unfortunately, even though I think they should, but apparently a lot of people disagree with me. So yeah, with that said, let's move on to the next country, which is Estonia. With Estonia, they are being represented by Alika with the song Bridges. And there's no doubt about it, this song would definitely qualify in a mixed 50-50 televote jury system. However, I do still think this is gonna qualify because ever since the introduction of the televote rule, the televote only semifinals rule, I think a lot of countries just have this idea that ballots are dead. Ballots are dead in the water in semifinals, but obviously that's not true. I mean, if you look at the past few years, oftentimes a lot of ballots would still qualify even with the televote. A great example of this is Saudade for Portugal last year. It only placed I think 8th in the televote, but it was the point being it was still top 10 in the televote. It was still a televote qualifier. So I don't know where they get this notion from. And in fact, I think Estonia being here is going to stand out a lot because there aren't a lot of pure ballots in the semifinal or in the contest for that matter, and Estonia is one of them. Lithuania is more kind of like a ballad that transitions into a gospel or soul type song. Greece isn't really a ballad at all. It's more, I don't really know how to describe it, but it's not a ballad. There's nothing really quite like Bridges in the semifinals. So I think that will help it to stand out. Plus, of course, there's the self-playing piano, which will absolutely get people's attention as well, and get people talking about it, which is what you need when you want to qualify. So yeah, I think Estonia is actually going to qualify. Maybe not very comfortably. Fourth is a pretty early slot for a ballot, but I think they're still gonna make it through. And then when it is in the final, I think it will do very well with the juries. So yeah, I think this is gonna qualify. Again, maybe not as comfortably as it would have done in the mixed system, but I think ballots definitely are not dead in televote only semifinals. So yeah, with that said, let's move on to the next country, which is Belgium. They are being represented by Gustav with the song Because of You. And I actually put this as a borderline qualifier, and the reason for that is it's not a very modern sounding song. It's probably like kind of 90s type house music. In that sense, it might be a little detrimental to his qualification chances. But here's the thing: Gustav sings really well. He's in fact, in my 30-day challenge thing that I do on Twitter, I nominated Gustav as probably the most consistent male vocal of the year. So yeah, I think he sings very well. He's got a lot of stage presence. There's a reason he was the vocal coach of Hooverphonic. So yeah, he's a great performer. He sings well, and the performance is no doubt going to be elevated in Liverpool. So yeah, it's just a great vibe. And we often underestimate how well fun songs tend to do. Case in point, Moldova 2022. So yeah, I think we tend to underestimate how these kind of fun, carefree songs tend to do. Okay, now I sound kind of like a hypocrite because, Malta, but still, I think this has a decent shot at qualifying. I don't think it's a surefire qualifier, but I think it definitely stands a chance. Like I said earlier, it's probably going to be between 8th and 12th. So we'll just see where in that region Belgium lands. So with that said, let's move on to Cyprus. Now, Cyprus are being represented by Andrew Lambrou with the song Break a Broken Heart. And I think this is actually a solid qualifier. I don't know why people aren't talking about this, but this is... okay, yes, the song is soulless, but it's a very solid pop song. Like a lot of people have said, it kind of has like, Imagine Dragon characteristics. And we've seen in the various TikToks that he's done that Andrew Lambrou can sing those high notes. So I think the vocal won't be a concern. And yeah, again, it's a little bit safe maybe. It's soulless, you could say. But it's solid pop. So I think it's going to be vanilla enough for televoters to attach to it. So I would personally put this as a solid qualifier. Some people even say top 3 in the semi. I wouldn't rule it out, but I wouldn't immediately put it there. So yeah, I think Cyprus is actually a solid qualifier. You may disagree, but let me know in the comments. So after that, we have Iceland. With Iceland, they are being represented by Diljá with the song Power, which is a kind of drum and bass type song. And there are people on both ends of the spectrum. Some people are like, it's drum and bass, how would it qualify because it's just a bland drum and bass song? And then there's people on the other end being like, oh, it's drum and bass, how could it not qualify? And kind of as a conclusion, because of that, I've decided to put it as a borderline qualifier. Kind of like Mef Hai Candy Soul last year. My sister, that was also only just 10th in the semifinal. I think if this qualifies, this is also going to be 10th, especially because it's going very early in the semi, relative to a lot of the hard hitters. So yeah, I think they would definitely have to elevate the staging, no doubt, because I don't remember much from the Silva Camden staging other than, a fog machine, so a smoke machine. So yeah, they would definitely have to improve the staging in Liverpool. But it's Iceland; they can do that. They know how to do that. So I would not rule them out at this point in time. Although I'm not saying they're definitely going to qualify. But yeah, I think they could qualify. And let's move on to a country that I think probably won't qualify, and that is Greece. Now, Greece are being represented by Victor Vernikos with the song What They Say, which is this kind of cutesy guitar type song. I don't really even know how to call it. It sounds kind of amateurish if you ask me. Okay, some people pointed out that being put this late, that might mean that they have big staging plans, and also they have voting allies like Armenia and Georgia and Cyprus, obviously, and Albania as well. So in that sense, yes, you could argue that they could qualify, but I think those countries also don't necessarily vote just because of this geographical / ideological alliance. I think they do also look at the song quality, and frankly, I just don't think this is a very competitive song. So as a result, I don't think this is going to qualify. Don't get me wrong, Victor Vernikos actually sings pretty well. He's demonstrated multiple times that he's got the live vocals, but I just can't see a way for them to stage this to be memorable and impactful for the average voter that is not in one of those Orthodox countries. So, yeah, I'm not seeing a pathways for the final for Greece. So, ironically, this is going to be the first time, at least in my opinion, that since 2018 that Cyprus qualifies but Greece doesn't. So with that said, let's move on to the next country, which is Poland. Now, Poland are being represented by again, I've said this before, but just bear with it for these few months. But Poland is being represented by Blanca with the song Solo, and I don't think this has any chance of qualifying whatsoever. I mean, her vocals aren't that good. I mean, like, she's done a few pre-parties and she's sounded either dodgy or non-existent on all of them. And then in the revamp of the song, they decide to add a dance break for someone who can't freaking dance. Are you okay, TVP? Are you are you going crazy or what? Like, this is not going to get you to qualify. A girl who can't dance is not going to suddenly be able to dance and sing at the same time. Plus, I'm pretty sure the Polish diaspora are aware of this controversy. So I think they're aware of that, and they will intentionally steer away from voting for Poland like they usually do. Plus, in terms of song quality, the Polish diaspora doesn't mobilize when they don't like a song. Case in point, Rafale 2021. So yeah, I'm not really thinking this is going to qualify in any discernible way, and if they do, then God save us all. In the meantime, let's move on to Slovenia, who are being represented by Joker Out with the song Carpe Diem, and I think they're actually a pretty solid qualifier. I don't know if they're going to win the semi, but I think top 10, obviously top 10 if they're going to qualify, but top 5 in the semi, I think, is guaranteed for Slovenia, which is not a thing you can say very often. But Joker Out have proven many times that they are very competent live performers. The song is lively, dynamic, and fun, and in contrast to Blanca, it shows an air of professionality while also being able to, again, stay fun, stay energetic. So yeah, I really wouldn't worry about them, actually, because a lot of people are really enjoying Carpe Diem, including myself, even though I only have it like 15 for something. I really do enjoy it, but I do enjoy a lot of the songs this year. So yeah, I think Slovenia is actually a pretty solid qualifier, which is not something you can say for most years of Slovenia's participation. Another country that we can't often say is a solid qualifier is Georgia, who is coming after Slovenia, and they are being represented by Iru with the song Echo. And again, I kind of find it funny that at no point during the song does she ever sing the word echo, but whatever. I think this is a very solid qualifier. Iru is a really, really good vocalist, a very consistent vocalist. At every single pre-party that she's been to, she's not missed a single note. And they're getting Marvin Dietman for staging, which, while not necessarily creative, is bound to give something that is of a certain level of quality. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Plus that little jing-a-ding thing in the middle, I think that could absolutely pique people's interests. So I think actually, and also I forgot to mention, of course, that Armenia are in the semi as well, and a lot of people are expecting Armenia and Georgia to swap points, especially considering Brunette recently made a choreography for Echo. So, yeah, I think Georgia's qualification is going to be pretty solid. Again, like Slovenia, I'm not sure whether they're going to win the semi because of a very obvious country coming soon. But I think this is another guaranteed semi top 5 for Georgia, which again is something you can't always say. So yeah, Georgia, a solid qualifier. Who'd have thunk it? Anyways, after that, we have San Marino, who are being represented by Peaked Jacks with the song Like an Animal. Now, like with Ireland, I think, sadly, I just don't see this qualifying at all. They're nice people, don't get me wrong. They're pretty good live performers as well, as we've seen at pre-parties and such. But the song just isn't nearly strong enough to qualify. Plus, they're being sandwiched by two very impactful entries. So yeah, I wouldn't put them to qualify. I don't think anyone will put them to qualify. And I just noticed that in both semifinals, the 12th slot is essentially a death slot now. So yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. But I don't think San Marino is going to qualify again another year. Although I would definitely argue that Achille Lauro was definitely more impactful. But anyway, yeah, I'm not seeing qualification for this. Frankly, I don't think there were too many strong entries in the national final. But yeah, what can we do? In the meantime, let's move on to the next country, and the country that I've been touting, and a lot of people have been touting as a potential semi-winner, that is Austria. Now, Austria, of course, are being represented by Taya and Selena with the song Who the Hell is Edgar? And, when the song was released, a lot of people were worried that this could be another, Pia Maria type situation where they can't sing and just massively bring down the performance, but that turns out not to be the case. In fact, if anything, they're some of the strongest live performers in the entire season. They've done great at Amsterdam, they've done great at Madrid, they did amazing at London, where actually they had some graphics made for them, including a Comic Sans for the that groan right before the last chorus. That was brilliant. Yeah, I'm really proud of them. They've made some really great performances. There's theming is also very consistent. It's always Taya wearing something black and then Selena wearing something white, and they've also shown their outfits for Eurovision, which are also going to be in that general palette, except with like a few red highlights. So yeah, I think Austria are actually qualifying very comfortably and will probably win the semi. So yeah, with that said, let's move from Austria to Albania. Now, Albania are being represented by Albina and Familia Kalmendi, and they're singing the song Duye. And yeah, I don't know, because a lot of people are saying like conflicting things. So for the meantime, I think I'll put it as a borderline qualifier, because on one hand, how many family acts are there this year? But on the other hand, I think the whole dynamic is very awkward. They're doing this little choreography, which is fair enough. I mean, what do you expect a 60, 70-year-old mom to be doing? But at the same time, yeah, the dynamic just does not come across on screen at all. I think they're getting Sacha Jean-Baptiste to stage it, which is good. I think she knows how to bring out the drama, I guess. But still, I keep coming back to this, but the dynamic, for me at least, just does not work. The sound is very kind of Middle Eastern, I guess, which makes sense because a lot of the new instrumentals were recorded in Istanbul. But yeah, I'm not sure. Particularly Western European voters, I think, are going to be confused at best by the performance, and I'm not sure that they're going to vote for it. But of course, Eastern Europe is the bigger unknown. Certainly, I think countries like Greece could be voting for this. It sounds very, from that region. Similar case with Cyprus, obviously. But yeah, I'm still skeptical. And honestly, I put it as a borderline qualifier for now because, Albania also has a diaspora, of course. But personally, I'm leaning towards no. And This might be a hot take, this might not, I'm not sure. But in the meantime, yeah, I'm just not feeling it that much as a qualifier. Even though 14th is statistically actually a really good spot for qualification. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens. A lot of conflicting things for this entry. So yeah, with that said, let's move on to Lithuania, who are being represented by Monika Linkytė with the song Stay. Now, this might be another hot take, but I think this is one of the most solid qualifiers of the entire semifinal. I think this could easily come top 5 or even top 3 for multiple reasons. First off, it's a very, very diaspora song. That Chudo Tudo thing is no doubt going to resonate with a lot of Lithuanian diaspora, say in the UK or in Ireland or something. There's that, and then there's also the fact that this is the only kind of like I said earlier, soul or gospel adjacent song. It starts kind of like a conventional ballad, but then it gets into a more gospel type beat, and I think we really shouldn't be underestimating the power of genre standout. I mean, look at what happened with Jeremy McKessie. So yeah, I think this is actually going to be a really solid qualifier. Of course, in fact, obviously it's second to last in the running order. That's bound to give a good televote score. But even that aside, I think there's a lot of things going for this to qualify. Although in the grand final it might be a different story, but for qualification, I think this is going to be fairly comfortable indeed. And to close off the show, we have Australia, who are being represented by Voyager with the song Promise. Now, this is another song I think is actually going to be a very solid qualifier. Like I said, genre standout. This is like the only actual rock song in the semi. Carpe Diem is more like pop rock. This is kind of like electro rock with a hint of metal, with the screaming and stuff, or growling. I'm not sure what it's called actually. But still, yeah. They've also done a couple of pre-parties, and they've shown themselves to be very, very competent live performers. And I think the EBU putting them to close the show goes to show that the EBU wants them to qualify. And indeed, I think they will, because, like I said earlier, Voyager are very competent live performers. And even though I don't really like the song, I think this is a very solid proposal, at least for qualification. Again, I don't know how well this will do in the final. And it's the only kind of electro metal rock song in the semifinal. So it's definitely going to stand out. So I think this is a solid qualifier for me. So just to round up the second semifinal, I think the solid qualifiers are Armenia, Estonia, Cyprus, Slovenia, Georgia, Austria, Lithuania, and Australia. And then those are that's 8. So I think the last 2 will be 2 out of Belgium, Iceland, and Albania. And personally, I'm leaning towards Belgium and Iceland, which would make a 5-5 split. Sorry, I had to count again there. A 5-5 split between the first half and the second half, which is actually kind of rare, since statistically it tends to be more second half songs that qualify. But of course, we'll see what happens. Staging could very much impact the qualification chances of a country. So yeah, that's my personal predictions for qualification in Eurovision 2023. Let me know what you think of these. Let me know which one of these you agree with, which ones of these you might not agree with. And give a like if you enjoyed my commentary and my predictions. Subscribe so you don't miss my upcoming videos, which will probably include a top 37 ranking. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.